Episode number 28 in Creative Love Radio. We are going to help you break the cycle of just enough. So if you've ever felt that you're hitting a wall in life, you're not getting what you want, this is the episode for you. Welcome to Creative Love Radio with Debi and Dr. Rob. We are redefining relationships to guide you to greater love, more success, and living your purpose through the latest research in neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Eastern wisdom. Get ready for another inspirational episode of Creative Love Radio. All right, episode number 28. This is Debi Maldonado. I'm here with Dr. Rob, and we are talking about breaking the cycle of just enough. What does that mean?
The just enough syndrome.
The just enough syndrome.
It is very rampant if you think about it. Just enough means that you're operating on a survival mode. You're making enough to pay the bills, and you're making enough to be comfortable, and you're making enough effort to have okay relationships, and you're making enough just to get by.
So even someone who's looking for love, they just want someone who's just enough, just cover the bases instead of have it all. Like he's good enough or she's okay, this will work. And we tend to settle. The less we create in our life, the more we tend to settle for less.
Absolutely.
And then the bar is set so low that we forget that there's more.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you think about most people, they're operating on this principle of just enough, and it's insidious because the way the mind works is that what the senses show you, you think it's out there and it's showing you some kind of reality. And then the mind, the brain, the mind will take that and assume that that's real, that that's all that's possible. And therefore, it recreates it again. So you get this vicious cycle going. Input from the senses, the mind formulates this and says, that's what's possible. That's as far as you can go. And then projects it outward and recreates it and back again. So that vicious cycle, that's why most people find it very difficult to go beyond that mindset of just enough.
So for example, if you are in a job where you're always just making enough to pay the bills, that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you or how high you go up in the corporate ladder and you get promotions and raises, but it always seems that you're still trying to catch up. The debt's still there. The more you have, the more you spend, more expenses show up. It always seems to just level out, and you never feel like you're ahead. And then another example would be love too, that the relationship will only go to a certain point. You'll have this great, connection, and then it'll just end.
Something will happen.
Yeah, something will happen, and it'll just be like taken away from you again. And I remember this when I was single too, is this idea that, and I hear this all the time from our clients, is it's hard to believe that things could last because you go in thinking, well, this is how it's always been. It's the other shoe's going to drop, and this thing is not going to last. I don't know if I can trust this person to stay around. They're too nice, or something bad's going to happen. And then when it does, it's like, see, yep, I was right. This relationships just don't work out for me, or money just doesn't ever come in big forms for me.
Yeah. So here's the key to breaking the cycle, to going beyond it. Because what's happening is you're bumping up against the limitation. You're bumping up against the shell that you've constructed, that your mind and senses have constructed as to what's possible. Beyond that shell is possibility.
So you're seeing what you believe on a deep level is possible and keep repeating it over and over again. So the shell, the edge of it is your edge of what you believe is possible.
Yes, that's it. Now, What allows us to break through that shell is higher knowledge, meaning a real understanding of the nature of the mind and the nature of reality. That will allow us to break through. In essence, now this is a different perspective, because what it does, it shows us that the shell is not really an obstacle and it's not really an enemy for us. It's been there to protect us, just very much like an egg protects the yolk, mm-hmm. and allows it to grow to a certain point. But at a certain point, it's ready to break through.
The shell protects the egg.
The shell protects the egg, exactly. It keeps it safe from the environment, mm-hmm. and it keeps it all in one place with nutrients and all that good stuff. So it's the same with us. We needed this experience, these so-called limitations, in order to develop to a certain point, to develop mm-hmm. our ego mind, to develop our sense of who we are, and all that good stuff.
So it's a sign of a healthy mind. There's
Absolutely.
Nothing wounded or wrong with you because you're reaching that edge.
Yes. And they're not blocks, and they're not obstacles. It's simply that we've reached a point where we want to grow beyond that. Mm-hmm. That's the key right there. So we break through this higher knowledge, this higher understanding of the mind, and in order to break that cycle, right, that vicious cycle of projecting limitation and observing it out in the real world, we have to now depend on a higher vision of what's possible. And that's what people find very, very difficult.
Well, because people create their vision based on what they experienced in the past. That's how by default the mind works. It assesses the past, it assesses the environment, our past experience, and then it makes a judgment.
Yes.
And this is where I think a lot of people, and we talk about this on other calls about the idea of intuition, and that people using their gut. And what the gut is really doing is reinforcing, or comes from that pattern of memory. And so where do we get inspiration from? That's the question, right? Where do we get it? And how do we know that we, like a lot of people say, I can't believe this is possible. Yes. I really can't imagine it being possible for me to find that true love, or be wildly successful or famous or whatever they wanted in their life, or being healthy again.
Well, in a nutshell, or in an eggshell, it comes from our past experience. Mm-hmm. Let's say that limited perspective. It comes from our past experience, because our natural ego mind will simply use what it has experienced in the past to construct the vision of what's possible. Mm-hmm. Here we're depending on higher knowledge, meaning it goes beyond what we've experienced ourselves personally. Now we're trusting in this higher vision of what's possible. And what's possible has little to do with our limited perspective on our personal life. It is beyond that. And that's where we really have to trust in this higher knowledge. Well, first of all, we have to understand the higher knowledge. Mm-hmm. What is it talking about?
What is the higher knowledge?
Higher knowledge is really anything that teaches us what is the true nature of the mind and what is the true nature of reality. Because what we perceive, we're not saying that it's not true or not real, but it's a very limited perspective on what a human being is. It's that ego perspective, which is very individualized, meaning its sole function is to protect you as an organism, to make sure that you survive. What is beyond that higher knowledge teaches us that we are much more than that. All right? We are essentially divine, but to get to the point of trusting in that, that's the work most of the time. That's the work that's going to allow us to break through that shell of limitation.
So can I just interrupt for a minute? The lower knowledge, just to reiterate, is basically the knowledge that we receive through life. I know that this is a microphone I'm sitting in front of. I'm sitting in a chair. That's no lower knowledge. We know history, and we know our own personal history. We know faces and names and equations and things like that. Higher knowledge is really almost like the way the world works on a greater scale, on our potential, and things basically that we can't see almost, right? It's this kind of philosophy or vision of our spiritual self.
Absolutely.
Which is something we don't learn in school and sometimes not learn in church.
That's right. Nobody really teaches us these things. We have to seek them out. But there are great sources now at our disposal. And this knowledge then will allow us to create that vision that will allow us to break through. There's another element that goes into that vision because, a lot of people talk about, you got to have a vision, you got to have passion. And that's passion. But what does passion mean? A lot of us interpret it as like a strong emotion, a strong desire. That's true to a certain extent. We do need a strong desire for something. But what it means in the higher sense of the word, it means that there's an innate desire to free our mind. And we all have it, except that it's covered up by that shell of limitation. And by the time people get to that point where all they're seeing is limitation, that little voice that says, you need to free your mind, you need to break through, you need to do more, is drowned out. It's forgotten. It's covered over by all that just enough limitation.
But when we see just enough, if we settle for it and say this is just how it is, and we become complacent with our lives, then the opportunity falls away. But the frustration or that angst around the just enough is really that divine voice saying, there's more.
Yes.
And so there is an ego voice that's more like fearful. And then there's this other voice, I don't even think it has a voice, but it feels like a surge of energy or a power that rises within us. It's like, this can't be just it. There has to be more. And so that it's like a gentle pushing forward versus a grasping kind of feeling. And so it's harnessing that passion of how can I create a life that I really am passionate about, that really fills me. And we all weren't meant to be mediocre. I mean, that's not how we were designed. What happens, though, I think, is that we see the limitation and we lose faith and we forget who we are. And like you said, that voice gets drowned away. And we start to believe that all the people around us in our circle who are also living mediocre lives, saying this is just as good as it gets. You're going to have to settle for someone who isn't everything that you really want, because there aren't people out there like you that you want, or you can't get a job that you love and make really great money. It's either you work really hard and you starve, or only certain people and lucky people have that kind of, you're dreaming, right? And so you can believe those things, or you can believe in within you, like you said, the higher knowledge of, I know that who I am is a possibility. And that's how I want to live my life.
Yeah. Yes, and that desire to free our mind, it goes by a lot of different names. You can think of it as grace. You can think of it as, like the Buddhists say, bodhicitta, this innate drive to free, to become your higher self, or like they talk about in self-actualization, the hierarchy of needs. When you get to the higher elements, the higher pyramid of it,
it's like transcendence.
Yeah, you're talking about transcendence and this incredible creativity that's possible in us. That passion, it has to merge with the vision of what you need to do individually as a person. Combined, that's what allows us then to break through that shell of just enough, of just survival, of mediocrity, like you said. And most of us, or I would say all of us, need a guide. We need somebody that has broken through the shell themselves to teach
and said,
us how.
It's safe over here.
Yeah. That's one of the things, right? That it helps us believe that we see somebody that, okay, they've done it. That means I can do it too. Whereas when we try to generate that trust by ourselves, it's very difficult because the mind knows all our passwords and codes, and it just dissuades us and says, you can't do that. You need to go back to your safety zone and be comfortable, and
the narrator
you'll be fine. Yeah,
is telling us to discourage us actually from going outside, and it does that because we have to. That part of us has to basically realign to a bigger world and a new world. It's just like the chicken hatches from the egg. It's going to change out of the environment, and it fears that there's something dangerous about it, even though there isn't. That's why it's really hard for people to change. And I also think that we can look at other people, like you said, a guide to who's done what you've done. But if you don't know what's possible, if there's one person on the planet that has something that you don't have that you'd say, oh, I'd like that, then that must be possible for you. So even if you can't cultivate the imagination for yourself of what is possible, just look at what has already been created by other human beings. And you are no different than anyone else. You are a part of that idea that you're connected to them. You have access to all the power and potential that person has. So how can you create that as well? And that's where would be a really easy place to start. Is there no one that has a good, healthy relationship? No, there are many people that do. Okay, that's possible. Is everyone starving and not making any money and not doing what they love? No, there are people that do that. Great. That means that's possible for me. Are there people that have spontaneous healings from serious disease? Yes, that means that's possible for me. Anything is possible that you can already see, and then beyond that. But start with that. That's like the easiest thing to look at is if you want something, you have this urge for something, look at other people that have already done it. And then if you open your mind, you're actually going to see more hope that there is a possibility. But if you if you're not guarding your mind, what you're going to see is all the people that don't have that are in your circle. Your mind, if left unexamined, is just going to default focus on people who don't have enough, right? And you're going to say, yeah, see, everyone else has this problem. Like all your friends, if you have a group of friends that are all single and you're like around them and all they do is complain about dating and how hard it is, that's what your reality is going to keep doing. So you have to get away from those kind of people that surround yourself with people that are making things happen, that are having what your dream is. It's a power of community.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, there's absolutely a need to make an effort. Mm-hmm. You have to make a conscious effort, and you have to question, is this all that's possible for me? Is this as far as I go? And you have to get into that uncomfortable space of, no, there must be something more, because it is uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's more comfortable, and it's easier to say, well, that's as far as I go, and that's as far as my life goes, and I'm just going to, make the best of it. Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable to put ourselves in the position of, what is my full potential, and can I enact it? Can I take this opportunity right now that I'm alive and that I have this energy and this time to really make it happen for me? It's uncomfortable because, it's questioning all those assumptions that we've been living on, for years and years. Now we're questioning all that and we're putting it to the test. So you have to take that searching and go out into the desert or go out in, not literally, right? It's a metaphor for that searching
and that journey. And what tends to happen, and the reason why we stay where we are, is because many times our imagination and imagining that the love of your life or the successful business or the whatever you dream of, living in a gorgeous home or going on a fancy vacation, is more comfortable to you to imagine it than to actually live it. So you have to see is what is in the way, what is in the gap between this shell that I have and this vision. There's something in the way, and it's not a block. It's more of a challenge that it could be just something that you're unfamiliar with. Of sharing your heart with someone may be very scary, but it's not really a bad thing. It's just unfamiliar. Or starting a business. I don't know how to do a business. I don't know what to do, and those type of ideas that it's better to just do nothing. Right? That's the mind keeps doing. So we want to look at what's the discomfort that's keeping us in the shell, but knowing that it's our choice, that once we see it, then we can make a choice and say, that's just not that big a deal. But if it's remained unconscious, what happens is that it becomes, we don't know, we can't see it, so we don't know how to work with it. And we just keep seeing just enough, and we just feel like that's all there is.
That's part of the irony that and this is more than reframing something, but that a lot of people think these are blocks or obstacles. In reality, we need those challenges. We need that pushback. It's like when you go to the gym, you need the power of the weights to work the muscle.
The resistance.
Yeah, we need a little bit of pushback in our life to really be strong in what we're going to do. And those things that most people call obstacles and problems they really contain the goal for our process, for our growth.
And it's really, why are we here? Are we here just to be comfortable? Are we here just to have just enough? Or you want to live life to the edge of what you can create? That's why when you're getting just enough and you're feeling that uncomfortable, instead of beating yourself up and thinking you're doing something wrong, or even trying to just magically manifest something so you can feel better. No, you want to embrace the challenge. You want to see, where's the edge of my shell here? Where can I crack this shell and break free? And I guarantee you the journey to cracking the shell and getting your freedom back is a bigger payoff than anything you could ever want, bigger than love, bigger than money. It's reclaiming that power is really the prize. And that's, so when you feel that setback or that just enough and that frustration, say, wow, this is great opportunity. I'm up for the challenge. It's like a puzzle that you're trying to solve. It doesn't have to be a wound that you're trying to heal. It's more of an adventure. And that's really what's going to break the cycle of just enough. So when it comes to love, if you're not sure where you are with cracking that egg, I have a great resource for you. Go to loveattractiontest.com, and there's a little quiz that you can ask just a few questions. I think there's 4 questions. And really see how close you are, how ready you are to find that love, and how you're working with the resistance. It's a really great test. And then you'll also be invited to listen to our video series that I put together for finding love and looking through the ideas of physical attraction and why you're attracted to certain people. And there's a free visualization with that. So lots of free gifts. Start with loveattractiontest.com. And if you want to interact with us in the community in Creative Love, go to our Facebook Creative Love community and become a member. And we'd love to hear from you and suggest shows that you'd like us and topics you'd like us to talk about. And we just wish you the best. We hope this year becomes one of those years where you really break free. And there's nothing like having freedom.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be a great year. So hop on board the train, because
the change train.
Yeah. And thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you on Facebook.
Take care. You've been listening to Creative Love Radio with Debi and Dr. Rob. For more information, visit us on our website at creativelove.com.